Y'all was sitting around thinking about what if? Like, what if? I thought about this as we lined up going into 2026. What if was asked if I woke up and everything was gone? If I woke up and I had no audience, I had no clients, I had no reputation, I had no money, but I had my voice and I had my trusty, dusty iPhone. What if? Could I? Would I? Should I? Well, I still feel like I'd have a profitable podcast up and running within 30 days. Or should I say maybe less? Now, you want to hear the crazy part to this situation? Most of y'all got more than what I got in this scenario, but you're still stuck. You're still overthinking, man. You're still waiting for the right time. Or should I say, you're still waiting for the perfect setup. Today, we got to kick that habit, man. We gotta break the mold. We gotta drop kick the monotony. I'm going to sit back. And again, I was thinking about this. I'm going to give you the exact blueprint, the step-by-step, no theory, just the real game on how I go from zero to a client-generating podcast in 30 days or less. Now, I know you're sitting back like, man, whatever. Trust me. This is not about going viral. See, everybody is in this mode that they want to go viral. It's not about going viral. This is about going profitable. Let's get it. Hey, yo, what's good, everyone? Welcome back to Podcast for Profits. Hey, man, it's 2026. This is that show where we turn conversations into currency. Now, I'm your host, Mr. Tony Porter, and I'm your coach. I am your big brother. I am your accountability partner in this podcast game. And look, I want you to understand something. I've built my podcast, my coaching business. I've helped hundreds of my friends who are entrepreneurs around me turn what they have now, their shows, into something profitable, into a client-generating machine. Now, for the longest, I've kept this quiet, so today I want to strip it down just a little bit. I'm going to cover some things that can help you in your progression as a podcaster. Now, here's what's crazy. Everybody knows how to podcast, right? Well, at least you think you know how to podcast. I thought the same thing when I first started. I swear I thought I was doing it, but then I realized I was doing it wrong. So I had to drop back, punt, and come up with what was I doing wrong? So what I came up with was I said, well, I got a few points that I could share. And ain't no sense of gatekeeping. Because listen, podcasting is the new radio. Everything is slowly but surely dwindling away. But podcast and podcasting is elevating to a whole nother level. Think about this. See, first of all, before I get into these points, I want you to understand something. We are not competing with the higher athletes in our genre, okay? I love listening to The Pivot. I love listening to All the Smoke podcast. I love listening to Cam's Fourth and One podcast. If I said it wrong, Cam, I apologize. These podcasts are podcasts that have come across in the sports genre. Now, when it comes to my genre, like I listen to hip hop. When it comes to hip hop, man, I'm listening to Drink Champs. I'm listening to Wallow and Gilly, $1 Million Worth of Game. I check out the Beehive podcast. It's based out of Atlanta. Who else am I listening to? I listen to the T.I. podcast. I'm listening to Joe and Jada podcast. I really be checking out Joe Budden. First, I didn't get into it, but Joe Budden's podcast is super interesting, man. I like the panel that he's got on there, too. All right, so we got to keep it a buck because in this game, that's what this is about. You got to have something that's interesting, that's eye-catching, that will draw attention. Now, when it comes to my genre, I'm listening to David Sands, I'm listening to Brad Lee, and all of these podcasts are broken up to episodes to where I can listen to them when I'm not doing much. I'm at the gym. See, most people rock out to music at the gym. I listen to podcasts at the gym. All right. So, but here's the points that I want to get to. I want you to understand. This is what I'm going to cover today. We got 5 points that I want to talk about. Now, the only thing that you don't understand is why I'm giving you 5. 5 is my number. So let's talk about point number 1. The only 3 things you actually need to start, and it ain't what you truly think it is. Okay. Point number 2 we're gonna cover is I'm gonna give you my 5-star, 5-step signature podcast system, the exact framework I use in every single podcast every single day. All right. I've even taken that and turned it into some of my educational trainings for YouTube, and I've broke it down to where I'm giving you the exact ingredients. You know, people from the South and people from the southeastern part of town, we love our food to be cooked and seasoned properly. So this is the same framework. All right. Then point number 3, we're going to show how to land your first paying client or customer from your podcast in 30 days or less. Point number 4, we're going to talk about some content strategy that builds authority while you sleep. Now, here's the true point to that. Most of this stuff, if it's done right, is automated and it's going to generate income while you sleep. And then point number 5 is why your lack of audience, is actually your biggest advantage right now. So we don't come in here. We're not messy. All right. We're not discussing the latest gossip. We turn conversation into currency. I help podcasters, coaches, creators kick a inconsistent 5-figure habit and build a 6 to 7-figure lifestyle of their choosing. Period. How do we do that? With your voice. Your voice is your leverage, and we need to learn how to leverage that. All right. So this episode is for the coach, that has things that are stuck in their head. The entrepreneur with a message but no mic time. You create a tired of trading time for dollars. This is who this is for. And if that's you exactly where you need to be at today. But without no further ado, let's jump into this, man. Now, one thing I will say is this. If you want to connect more with me, subscribe to the Podcast for Profits weekly newsletter. All right. Now, when you sign up or you subscribe, guess what happens? We're going to send you out the podcast, client generating podcast blueprint. The crazy part about it is we were selling this for $97 a few months ago. And one of the guys that I run with was like, hey, man, why don't you just give it away? I'm thinking, it ain't your pockets. But then I got to thinking, that's smart. So now he's on the team. He thought about something. Join the squad, bro. Come on. I got you. So again, client generating podcast blueprint is free when you sign up and subscribe to the Podcast for Profits weekly newsletter. And that weekly newsletter is packed. Every week you're going to get something packed. You're going to get a ton of information, a ton of content that you might not get. Or if you miss a video, you could always have the information right there for you. Okay, so I just wanted to put that out there for you. All right, now let's jump into this. Now, the only 3 things you actually need. I told you we got some points we're going to cover. All right, so here we go. Let's kill the excuses first. Here's what you don't need. You don't need a $2,000 microphone. That's out the door. You don't need a professional studio. That's out the door. You definitely don't need a huge following. Some of y'all think that your first episode is going to get you 1 million followers. Or if you're buying bots, it will, but not. You don't need the perfect branding, and you don't need a fancy website. See, all of these is the myths that have been put out there by the gurus and the people who want you to sit around and think long and hard and overthink, because guess what? Some people put this information out there for you to think about it so you don't get into the space, which leaves more room for them. Think about it. It's a reverse psychology. If you sitting there thinking you can't start because you don't have the microphone, you don't have the perfect studio, you don't have a huge following, you don't have the perfect branding, and you don't have the fancy website, they know you're not going to start. So guess what they're going to do? They're going to keep feeding that to you. And once they feed that to you, guess what happens to you? You never start. And then they just steady picking everybody in your circle. But here's what You do need. You need a smartphone or a laptop with just a single microphone. Now, if you have a microphone that can plug into your iPhone, that's great. Or a microphone that plugs into your Android phone, that's great. If you have a laptop, all you need is a USB mic. Simple. Number two, you just need to have you a clear message about who you help and how you're going to help them. And then the willingness to be consistent for 30 days. That's problematic ending number 3. All right. That's it. See, most people think that starting a podcast is this massive production. Nah, you have to understand, starting a podcast is about starting a conversation. I'm having a conversation with you right now. You feel me? This is what we have. We're having a conversation. And at last I checked, you've been having conversations your whole entire life. Every day you wake up, you're having a conversation. You're talking to your friends, you're talking to your parents, talking to your wife, your kids, your mom. You having conversations. See, for me, a conversation is like coaching high school football. I took my coaching experience in high school football and brought it over to my podcast game. And when I brought it over to the podcast game, it was the exact same. Listen, I would show up to practice. My kids, let me tell you something. I used to feel kind of bad because a lot of times kids wouldn't act right until Coach P showed up. Why? Because Coach P's that coach that's going to say, what's up, man? You good today? You ain't mess with that little girl. You ain't get caught in the hallway. What's your grades like? How's home? You eat today? You straight? These are the questions that, same thing. Hey, man, how'd your episode go last week? Did you tweak this here? What about this? I'm asking the questions because, see, when you're a coach, you bringing out the best in everybody. You bring out the best in the client that you're dealing with. It's not about me telling them what I did. It's about me saying, did you tweak your thumbnail? Did you update your SEO description for your podcast? Did you do any of that? Because, see, that's the way you get them to think. And so I had this homeboy. He turned out to be a client, but he was my homeboy. He came to me with this every excuse in the book situation. He was like, man, I don't have the right equipment. I don't know what to talk about. I don't have an audience. I told him straight up, bruh, you was with me when we went and bought our phones. Am I correct? He's like, yeah. I said, so if you was with me when we went and bought our phones, you got an iPhone, right? Yeah. Okay. I said, now let me ask you this. You help people, small business owners, individuals with their taxes, right? Yeah. Man, you got everything you freaking need right there. Stop playing. So we started going through, man, we started mapping some things out. And I told him, I said, look, I don't do it for you. I help you to understand the concepts of 3, 4, 5, 6. Long story short, 30 days later, my homeboy had 8 episodes live through Riverside. He had 2 discovery calls from listeners and 1 signed client worth $3,500. All recorded in his studio apartment on an iPhone at 3 o'clock in the morning. What's crazy is that my other partner, who makes music, did the exact same thing. Excuse after excuse. He's working a 9-to-5 job he can't stand. He got an iPhone. He helps producers learn how to monetize their music online. And guess what? He did all of his recordings. I think he was doing YouTube videos. And he had about 10 YouTube videos up. Same concept. He didn't put them out as podcasts. He put them out as YouTube videos. He shot all his stuff during his lunch break in the back seat of a Honda Accord. See, what they did was they took the power of clarity over complexity. I just sit back and was like, yo, they like, man, you got us to this point. Whoop, whoop. I'm like, listen here, bro. All I did was ask questions. I asked the questions everybody else was not going to ask you. Because a lot of people don't want to ask you these questions. A lot of people just want to sit back and watch you fail. A lot of people want to sit back and be like, whatever. Your boy don't. All right. So here is the first action step I need you to take. Define one thing. Define one single thing. And that's what transformation you provide. When you define it, define who's it for, and then write it down in one sentence. And that becomes the foundation for you, jumpstarting and cracking your podcast. All right. Now, let's talk about the 5-step podcast system that your boy uses. All right. I like this because this is work. When I learned this, so listen. This is pillar. This is point number 2 that we talked about in the beginning. When I first learned this, I learned this from Brian McCann over at Creator U, the owners of Samcart. All right, they had like a Creator U University, and they had this thing on there, and it was a video on there called magnetic messaging. And it took me a minute to understand it, but then I kept hearing it, and I kept hearing it again. And see, I was bouncing from course to digital product to this and to that. I thought about it. I said, let me back up and focus on one thing. So what I had to do was I had to really take time out. And so the first step that I had to think about was my magnetic positioning. And what you need to think about is the same thing. Listen, follow the blueprint. Because see, what this magnetic positioning does is it basically tells you is this. You got to be clear, crystal clear on who you're talking to and what problem you're about to solve. Because you can't help everyone. You can't just run in there and say, I talk about life. No, be specific. All right. Me, I help podcasters. Because see, every business owner should have a podcast. So once you start your podcast, you got to think this is an evergreen situation. So once this becomes an evergreen situation, now we on the same page because guess what? Your voice is your leverage. A podcast is like shooting YouTube videos. I didn't know that, did you? That's exactly what it's like. A podcast is shooting YouTube videos. All right. So here's some examples you can think about. I help solopreneurs turn their expertise into premium coaching offers. I show real estate agents how to close deals using Instagram stories. See how specific that is? Listen, I'm telling you in this example who I help. I'm helping real estate agents. What am I helping them do? Close deals. This is their transformation. Close deals through Instagram stories. Okay? Yeah, understand? Because see, it's the difference of talking to one and not many is this. I'm specific. I'm clear. It's magnetic. Once they know who I'm talking to, it's going to come to them. Podcasters is who I help. When you jump over to Podcast for Profits TV, you're going to start seeing me talk about podcasts and equipment, channels that you can use like YouTube and Instagram, because these are the channels that I use. All right. If I'm starting over, my positioning is I help podcasters and coaches monetize their message through the client generating podcast blueprint. Boom. Anyone who hears that knows exactly if it's for them or if it's not. We turn conversation into currency. Everybody wants to know, well, what do you mean? But then when I break it down to them, hey, listen to me. I help coaches because see, once you start podcasting, you become a coach. You didn't know that, did you? I ain't think you did. Once you become a podcaster, you become a coach because see, when you start talking, you start coaching people through what they need to do in their business through the expertise that you have. Come on now. Rock with me. Y'all rocking with me? All right, let's go. All right, so let's talk about this one. Step number 2 is content to client framework. This was a big one for me because it took me a minute to understand this. Every episode I create one goal. And every episode, that's what you need to do. You need to create one goal. And that one goal is to move someone closer to working with yourself. I create this goal to help people move one step closer to working with me. That means every episode includes a problem that I solve, a personal story that builds trust, one tactical win they can implement, and then the natural bridge to my offer. It's not just dropping knowledge for clout. It's building a client pipeline. See, every episode is a sales conversation disguised as value. And once you start to understand that, then you can move on to getting into step number 3, because see, step number 3 is your 30-day launch sprint. Now, this is where it becomes a sprint and not that marathon. Building your 7-figure podcast business, that is a marathon. launching your podcast within 30 days, that is the sprint. So here's my content calendar for me if I'm starting for fresh, all right? Now, most people will start out like this. For me, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to start week number 1, I'm going to record and release 3 episodes. I'm going to release one on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. For me personally, I've already got all my ideas out, so I've already recorded them. They're ready, scheduled to go. All right. Now, once I do that, week number 2, I'm going to record and have the next 3 ready. But this time, I'm going to focus on teaching one core framework. I'm going to include the client success stories or some case studies. And then I'm going to drop my lead magnet for the first time. So think about this. You teach your framework, your core framework. Then you include some success stories. Then you drop your lead magnet. Now in 2026, my whole month is already recorded. At the time of you're listening to this or you're watching this podcast episode, I'm working on February. I'm gathering all my assets. I'm gathering all my research. I'm gathering all my information. If you paid attention to the year in review, the year in review was shot directly on the weekend before New Year's Eve. Everything else was already prepped out because I'm thinking I'm going into 2026, full swing, guns loaded. We're going to rock out. And so then when I get to understanding that I'm already prepared, I've got week 2 done. When it comes to weeks 3 and 4, I'm going to keep the same rhythm, 3 episodes per week. Then I'm going to start repurposing content on Instagram. I'm going to start repurposing on LinkedIn. Maybe get a couple emails. All right. These are the things you got to do. I begin inviting guests who serve your audience. And then I'm going to take and make sure that at each episode you drop a clear CTA. But see, I like to strategically do mine. See, I like to have an episode. I have a CTA in the beginning, the middle, and the ending of my podcast. So in the beginning of this episode, I told y'all, listen, subscribe to the Podcast for Profits weekly newsletter. When you subscribe, you're going to get the client generating podcast blueprint. It's magnificent. Now, see, I had that in the beginning. And guess what I just did? I just put it in the middle. By day 30, you got 12 episodes live. All right. That changes. That's 12. That's 1, 2. That's not the police. That's 12 chances for someone to find you. There's 12 opportunities to build trust and 12 bridges to your offer. Come on, man. You got to stop playing. And see, once you start doing that, now you got to make sure that you have the right lead magnet. And that lead magnet integration. So every episode, mention your free resource. For me, it's the Podcast for Profit weekly newsletter. Believe me when I tell you, this newsletter is probably worth about $1,900. All the information you're going to get, it's a course, a revolving course. But then we're going to throw in the bonus and give you the client generating podcast blueprint for free. 3rd time. So understand this. If you want the full breakdown of how to turn your podcast into a client magnet, this is how you do it. Head on over, subscribe to the Podcast for Profits weekly newsletter, and get the client generating podcast blueprint for free. It's the exact system I use with my own coaching clients. It's the exact system I use when I'm building my episodes. It's the exact system I use to help build my 7-figure podcast. My lead magnet, it solves one problem for my audience, and yours should too. Make it actionable, make it fast, and make it free, man. Don't hold back. A lot of people gatekeep. No, don't gatekeep. Don't hold back jack, bro. All right? And once someone downloads the blueprint, they're in your world. Now it's time to nurture them. So you hit them with a quick welcome email with the blueprint. You might send them another quick win, give them some weekly value throughout. The newsletter comes on a Saturday, okay? But throughout the week, you want to just, talk to them, nurture them. Invite them to a couple free workshops, a challenge. Get them on a discovery call. See, a lot of people take discovery calls as a chance to sell something. I have triage calls. My triage calls, it tells me whether I want to deal with you or not. I can send you certain places. Okay. That's how your triage call, my triage call goes. All right. Then this is how I turn my conversation into currency. I never sell on triage calls. Never. This is where you just stop podcasting into a void and you start building relationships that lead to more revenue. So map out listen to me. Map out your 12 episode topics now. Map them out. Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it at all. Map it out and then figure out what are your 12 biggest questions your ideal client is asking. And then after that, each one becomes an episode. Now, point number 3, we need to talk about landing your first client in 30 days. Let me tell you something. Podcasters won't admit it, but you don't need a big audience to make money. You just need the right audience, period. People, the gurus is going to tell you, oh, man, I need 20,000 downloads. No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't need 20,000. A couple hundred to do. See, when I started building my coaching business, I didn't have 1,000 downloads. I had a dozen, but those dozens was the right people. They was coaches, creators. These entrepreneurs who I needed, or these entrepreneurs who needed what I was offering, man. They needed this. And I was the guy to give it to them. Now you got to be tactical, because here's how you land your first one in 30 days. You got to have the direct outreach strategy. After the episode goes live, I'm on Instagram. DM 10 people in your network. Top in. Now, here's one thing a lot of people don't know, and I learned this from a lady named Maria Witt. I go into people's DMs through certain ways. So here's how this goes. I'm on Instagram. I'll search podcast listener because it's one of their interests. I go in to see who they listening to. If they make a comment and somebody comments on it, then not only do I follow the person who I'm looking at, I go in and then I DM the person who made the comment, and then I follow them. That naturally brings them into my world. And I say, hey, yo, I just dropped a new episode. Give them the episode and tell them, hey, man, I thought about this when I read your comment. I thought about this when I read your pain point. Let me know what you think. I'm not selling. I'm just sharing. Or you could do this. You could become a featured guest. You know, in 3 to 4 weeks, you start inviting 2 or 3 guests who already served your ideal audience. Man, you gotta be strategic about this. I'm not looking for celebrities. They cost. I'm looking for people with engaged communities, 500 to 2,000 followers. That's about it. They come on my show, share it with the audience, and boom. I just got introduced to the more potential clients who already trust someone I'm aligned with. Number 3, case study episodes. When you do case studies, here's what you're doing. Even if you don't have clients yet, I got results in my life. I got wins. I got transformations. I'm recording an episode called How I Achieve a Specific Result in a certain time frame, and how you can too. That episode becomes my signature content. I'm running with that everywhere. Instagram, LinkedIn, emails, everywhere, Facebook, TikTok. That one episode does more for my credibility than 100 random posts. So record your case study episodes this week. Make it about your transformation. Your story is your proof. You feel me? Number 4, your content strategy. And this is the content strategy that builds authority while you sleep. If you are rebuilding from scratch, it's not just podcasting. You're building a content ecosystem. All right. Here's how it flows. 1 podcast episode equals 10 pieces of content, right? 5 Instagram reels, 3 LinkedIn posts, 1 email newsletter, 1 YouTube video, 5 to 10 tweets, threads, LinkedIn carousels. See, I'm recording and I'm once, and distribution is everywhere. This is how you build a presence, an omnipresence without burnout. See, not only am I using Riverside, I use Opus Clip. Man, Opus Clip will blast out. I haven't touched. I take the link from the podcast, enter it in the Opus Clip. It spits out 15 to 20 clips, maybe more. So from the time the episode drops to the time it's over with, I have literally just sent out 4 to 5 shorts reels, videos for Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And then the ones I get from Riverside, I put on Facebook. See, this is my magnetic messaging framework put to work in every piece. Listeners lock in the statement. That's how I hook you. My story stack, that's the personal examples that build connections. Teach one thing rule. All right. Teach one thing rule. That's the technical nugget they can use today. Trust transfer CTA. That's the bridge to my lead magnet and alpha. Then I binge loop. Listen, man, binge loop. This is that teaser that makes them want the next episode, and then proof and promise to the bridge. This is a result with proven work methods. Again, take your next episode, break it down into 5 social media posts this week, start building your ecosystem now. And then why your lack of audience is actually an advantage. See, now we're going to flip your mindset switch on real quick. You think having an audience is an advantage? Nah. It's the biggest opportunity. Here's why. You started from zero. You got no expectations, no bad habits, no entitlement. Some of the most successful podcasters have built their business with audiences of under 500 downloads per episode. How? Because they weren't chasing the metrics that they thought they needed. They were chasing conversations. See, I got this popcorn business I do on the side. It's called Snapcracker Gourmet. When I first started, I didn't have no list. I didn't have no email list. I started off a whim. I was watching a video on YouTube. I had no social media clout with this particular business. Matter of fact, nobody knew me on my other. We just followed each other. I just had relationships. I had conversations. I showed up consistently. I showed up and gave folk at the job while I was working the one-on-one experience of experiencing this popcorn. The same energy I brought to that, I bring to my podcast. All right? That's what I do. Now, let me give you this mic drop moment. Your first 100 listeners are worth more than your first 10,000 followers. Think about that. Why? Because those 100, they engage. They are the ones who will buy, refer, and champion your work. So here's your action step. Stop comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. Commit to 30 days, 30 of consistency and see what happens. Man, that was dope. That was deep right there. I like that. Yeah, that was dope. Y'all like that? Yeah, I was digging it. Yeah, I really was. All right. So look, I gave you the full game. The exact system I use if I lost everything and had to rebuild, right? But here's the real talk. Knowing the steps ain't the same as talking the steps or taking the steps. Excuse me. I said talking, taking. This is why I built the Client Generating Podcast Blueprint. This is why I have the Podcast for Profits weekly newsletter. It's a free resource that walks you through how to position your podcast for profit, how to use the exact content calendar for your first 30 days, the plug and play episode templates, and the lead magnet and funnel framework that converts. Now, if you grab the Podcast for Profits weekly newsletter, you're going to get the Client Generating Podcast Blueprint for free. That's the game. Turn it on. Use it. Your podcast is your client generating machine, man. All right. So let's do that. Let's do what we need to do. So here's what I'm going to do. Head over to the link right now. Subscribe to the Podcast for Profits weekly newsletter. Grab the Client Generating Podcast for free. It's going to send it right to you. And we're going to get started, man. Take the action. Record your first few episodes this week. Don't wait for perfect. Perfect is the enemy of profitable. Remember, we turn conversations into currencies, but you got to start with a conversation first. Check it out, man. I'm Tony. I'm over here at the Podcast for Profits. I hope to talk to you, man. We need to sit down and chop it up. Have a mimosa, have a tequila sunrise. We need to have a conversation because our conversations will turn into currency. All right, man. Let's get it. I'm going to see y'all. Peace.